Welcome to the Holistic Pathway podcast, unscripted conversations on mind, body, spirit, and entrepreneurship. A new video series podcast where we dive deep into the holistic integration of life and business. I am Tammy Coin, your holistic alchemist, helping you change pain into possibilities and possibilities into purpose. Today's guest in chat is Lynda Hills, and Lynda is a wholehearted, compassionate therapist, coach, and recovery consultant, as well as a semi-retired massage therapist in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Lynda completed her Master's of Education in Counseling at Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford, Oklahoma, and obtained her LPC, Licensed Professional Counselor. She is trained in internal family systems, making sense of your worth, the Batterers Intervention Program, gambling addiction, love and logic parenting, the 12-step model through a trauma lens, darkness to light, and post-induction therapy. I'm really excited to chat with Lynda, and I hope you'll stay tuned and enjoy today's episode. Thank you for watching. Well, hello, Lynda. It is so good to see you. Being both from Oklahoma girls. I've had an Oklahoma person on here, but not another Oklahoma girl, so that's pretty cool. And gosh, I mean, I think we probably met online, but we actually did meet once for like a little lunch and more, if I remember right. And I don't even know when that was. So it's cool to see you.
It is nice to see you too. Yeah, I've enjoyed following you on social media. I think that's probably been about 5 years ago, I would say.
It could be, I have been a spiritual ping pong ball for the last 10 years, up and down I-40,
Yeah.
3 full moves to Arizona. So it could have been in that period.
I feel like you had just came back to Oklahoma.
Okay, because I came back the first time in 2017, and then I came back the second time in 2020.
I bet it was 2017 then. I bet it was that long ago.
It could have been, well, and I was still living there between 2017 and 2018. So it could have been 2018 maybe.
Yeah.
And then I went on a spiritual road trip that lasted 2 years. I thought it was going to last, like a couple of days, and I was here for 2 years. So
Okay.
anyway, so yeah, so I think we've been through a lot, and that's kind of the holistic path, right? I mean, it is just a lot. And I think that's the interesting thing, is that so much of the human experience is so hard. It is so hard. And what I've come to believe, that it is so hard because it was strengthening you, growing you, getting you ready for this higher work that you're here to do. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Tammy. I actually love that you said that, because I've kind of been telling myself that the last couple of weeks in the work that I'm doing now. I do have my own private practice, but I work for community mental health agency. And I'm really finding that a lot of the people that are coming into my space are walking through things that I have walked through. And it's so, like, I feel so honored to be able to hold space and not be afraid of what they're going through, and just let them be where they're at and help guide them however I can.
Well, I think that's so true. I've said so many times to people, and people, unless they get it, they don't get it. And what I have said was, I believe the bigger the holes you've climbed out of, the bigger your purpose. And sometimes people are still in the hole and don't recognize that it's for something else. And I've said so many times, as a little girl, I kept thinking, why am I going through all, like what did I do wrong? Like, what in the world, And but I knew that I was here to make a difference, but I had no idea what that meant. And I so often felt like I was being punished, like what the hell, somebody just dropped me into this life. And it's just like, can I have a rain check? Can I like go get a refund?
Yes. Can I breathe?
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
it wasn't okay. I am 59 years old. I've got a master's in counseling too. I've done all the things. And I swear to you, it wasn't until the last few months that I ever heard the word dysregulated. I was like,
Yep.
what is that word? I said, is this a new buzzword? Because I've spent my life dysregulated. What do you
Sure.
mean?
I know. Absolutely. Well, there's been so much more research that's surfaced in the last several years, it feels like. I
Yeah.
mean, I think about where I was when I got out of school and how much I thought I knew
Yeah.
getting out of school. And then, you know, fast forward like almost 15 years from finishing my master's degree, like the school has been being out here actually working in the field and doing my own work.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I had went through 30 years of traditional counseling for myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like we never even really scratched the surface of what was going on in my life. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe I just need to become a counselor. Okay, I'll do that. So I did the 60-hour master's degree. I did 3 internships, and then I opted to go the holistic route instead of the LPC route. But I remember sitting through some of my classes at OU and just crying. And I thought, and somebody said to me at that time, you may need to do some more healing before, before you do this. And I was like, well, I've already done 30 years. What the hell do you mean? You know? And it's so interesting. So did you graduate with your master's? Was it 2012?
2010.
2010. Okay.
2010.
And I did mine the year before. And
Okay.
then I didn't go through spiritual awakening until 2014, which
Okay.
flipped my whole world upside down.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I, 25 years ago, at this time right now, I was in treatment for methamphetamine. Okay. So I believe that was like the beginning of my first spiritual awakening, right?
100%. Yeah. It was the preparation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in 2013 is when my second one happened.
Mm,
And I started doing this deeper work.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting about that is that oftentimes, well, now looking back, I've been having awakenings for
Yeah.
years, but it was
Absolutely.
the one in 2014 where I finally was awake enough that I actually knew what was happening. I became conscious enough to know what was happening. And I started to recognize that I had been diagnosed with, I had CPTSD, I had clinical depression, I had all these things. And it took me a long time to figure out the difference between depression and dark night of the soul. Like these were very different things because when dark night of the soul happened, I thought, holy shit, I had only thought I had felt depression before. But the awareness and the beauty of it was to realize, okay, this is actually happening for a purpose now, for a reason now, and to be able to realize that this is a temporary state that I can actually get to the other side of once
Yeah.
I do the things I need to do. Have you found that to be true too?
I do believe I have been through a dark night of the soul, maybe a couple of them
Yeah.
in the last several years. Yeah.
It begins to, well, in the spiritual community, sometimes people hear of ego deaths and it sounds very scary and they think, oh my God, and I've talked about this on this channel before. If you ever go, if you are connected with somebody who, say, does tarot readings, or there's a death card, and then people think that that means like actual death, and it's really, it's the dying away of something else for the rebirth of something else to come, a bit like the seasons, right? When winter comes and things die away. So ego deaths, which happen a lot within the dark night of the soul, is you start, it's like these identities that you've sort of grabbed onto throughout your life, they start to break away. And you start to realize that that was just kind of a hat that you were putting on, and it's not actually who you are. But it can be so scary and so painful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So crazy.
It's like dissecting every part of you.
It's like, it's a science experiment. It really is. It's like, okay, well, and I've said to people, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't seek this out, right? It's like, I was called into this. Like I wasn't out there going, hey, let me see how much more hell I can walk through.
Absolutely. Well, I think there's been times I'm like, I don't even want to do this. Like, why? Why? I don't want to do this. It's exhausting. It's painful, but it's also so precious and so sacred.
It is. And to know how much we can help someone else. I walk the road as a coach. And so I had an amazing woman reach out to me several years ago. She was 5 years out of a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the throat. And she had survived. And she had a trach. And she was considering that path again. And she found me. We still don't know exactly how that happened. And she found me. We spent 3 sessions together. Each of those sessions, we would both become just very sick. And her trach would drain, like there was all kinds of things that would happen. And now she just posted the other day that, let's see, that was 2017 or 18. And she is now here today, still in 2024, thriving, doing amazing, absolutely out there speaking her truth. She no longer has a trach. She is just, and not all the people who come to me have that kind of challenge. But I knew that she was here for something more. I knew that because, clearly, and I think that's the thing. Sometimes when we're wrapped up in our pain, we can't imagine that we're walking through that to actually, I talk about, I use the metaphor of becoming a master sailor and saying, well, you can't just sit on the shore and watch the boat and expect to become a master sailor. Like, you've got to be on the boat going through some really hard stuff. And the hard stuff doesn't stop coming. You just learn how to navigate it a whole lot better.
You have different skills to take care of you.
There was something I read on your bio that gave me a question. You did internal family systems. Was that like the work of Virginia Satir? Is it connected to that?
I'm not for sure. I do know of Virginia Satir. I think I've read a little bit of her work, but Richard Schwartz is who pioneered internal family system.
Okay.
From what I understand. And maybe she was before him. I'm not for sure, but Richard Schwartz and Frank Anderson are both like authors for internal family systems. Actually, Dick Schwartz just wrote a book not too long ago called No Bad Parts.
Oh, okay. Internal family systems. So I was recalling a class in some work that I'd went through that was on reconstructing family systems. That's
Oh,
what's
okay.
connected to
Okay.
Virginia
Yeah.
Satir. And
Yeah.
that's where you actually are with a big group of people role playing family members for a
Okay.
person.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and
so
so,
weird.
yeah, it's so interesting. So, Dick Schwartz actually worked as a family therapist, and he noticed all, he knew about the whole outside family system. And then he realized that we have an internal family system too.
Yeah.
And then started developing the internal family systems model.
Cool. That's really
It's
cool. Well, and it's like so many other things. It's like if you're talking about religions,
mhm,
you can look at all these different religions and see the same thing
absolutely.
using different words. You
Mhm.
can see parallels with different things, like, and then in the spiritual community, like the more you study, the deeper you get into your own healing, the deeper you get into the work that you do and the modalities that you're called to do and that kind of thing, you start to see these overlays. Like thought it was so amazing. I've got the main seven chakras behind me.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mhm.
As soon as I made that connection, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah,
Yes.
it's the
Yeah.
same thing, really. I mean,
It
different
really,
words, same thing, you know?
it really is. There's so many models that it's just layers, right? And the thing I have decided, I am really married to the internal family systems model because I feel like I understood it a long time ago before I was ever trained in it. And just knowing that there are parts of us, that in the internal family systems model, like we have our true self who's compassionate and calm and curious and connected and clear and creative, persistent and patient and passionate. That's like our true self. There's some other P words and C words in there.
Mm-hmm.
And some people call that like our God image.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have firefighters and we have managers. And then we have our little exiles. And those are the young, vulnerable parts of us that were exiled away.
Hmm.
They hold that emotion. And then those firefighters come in to help protect us so we don't feel that pain or that shame. That's when like addictions come in, or suicide or self harm and dissociation. And then we have the managers on the other side, where that's like the caretaker and the passive pessimist and the judge and the perfectionist. And it's all just to protect us, but there's no bad parts of us. There are parts that can get out of alignment and can hurt us or hurt other people. And that's where the integration comes in, so that we can really be our true authentic self
Mm-hmm.
instead of living out of those parts.
Well, I love that. So I'm a hypnotherapist, and there is a technique called parts therapy. So
Okay.
you work with that, and I'm a yoga nidra facilitator. And with that, you're working with different layers of the body. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got the layer the physical layer, but then there are other layers besides that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting again. And one of the things what I'm so driven and so passionate about doing the podcast in this way is that, again, and we talked a little bit off camera, that this is really about bringing the lighthouses together, and those people can talk about their own holistic journeys, and whether that's mind, body, spirit, or entrepreneurship. And I
Yeah.
also believe we each have a frequency in our voice, and there are people that we're here to help, I feel, that are tuned to our frequency. And
Yeah.
so what I love about bringing people together is because they may have never seen or heard of you before, but they may see and hear you and go, oh, she's my person. Or they may see me, or they may see one of the other guests and say, oh, that's my
Absolutely.
person.
Mm.
And what I love about it too is bringing all of us together like that. We may say the same thing, but in a different way that they haven't heard before. And we may find, well, hey, I saw so-and-so and we have the same kind of heart and we have the same kind of philosophy about really making a positive difference in the world. And I feel like maybe I've done what I can do with my client, or maybe I'm not the right person for my client, but I saw this other person and I think they might be a good fit. And so I just love that. I feel like, and I've shared this before with other guests, is that I kept trying to figure out how in the world can I help? Like, how can I be the difference the world needs, right? How can I make that difference? And the only way I knew to do that was to start with myself and then start creating a ripple with everybody that I come in contact with. And then when the podcast, well, I did a book several years ago where I collaborated with people all over the world. And now the podcast, to get with people who are all across the United States and different parts of the world, it's like, how can we really make a difference? It's too much for one person.
Absolutely. I think I love what you said there, because I have this, I think it's so important for us to be in collaboration instead of competition.
100%.
So that's something I say, collaboration over competition. There's no reason. There's plenty of us that are here to help, and there's plenty of people that need our help.
For sure. And the thing is, and I think it's important for those of us, going back to what I said in the beginning about the bigger the holes you climb out of, the bigger your purpose. For those of us who've done that, where it wasn't just going and getting an education and doing this job, there was a reason, there was a big why that you walked through all of this. And I think it also helps you to be able to recognize that someone else is here for bigger things.
Yes.
Someone here is stepping into their purpose. Because what I've found is that these journeys that we've walked have been giving us clues the whole time. Absolutely. But we didn't really get it. And every person has a really unique path when they start to look at it. And sometimes the parts don't look like they go together at all, but they really do,
Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody has gifts. Everybody has a unique purpose.
Yeah.
On the earth.
They do. And it's so funny when other people can see it, but they can't. I mean, it's not funny. That's part of what adds to the pain.
No,
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It is hard.
Yeah. So interesting. So you said if I remember in your bio, you're a coach and a counselor, right?
Yes,
so
I do.
How do you find for people who might be confused about that? How do you differentiate between those two? What do those look like to you?
Yeah, I think coaching is more like just kind of helping someone move from one space to another. And therapy is more really digging in deep to the past, into the traumas, to help them heal those traumas. Help with and then of course, like if a person needs a medication, or if they need a diagnosis, that's more for the therapist or the mental health, the mental health path rather than just the coach.
And you bring up a good point, which is part of why I switched my path from the mental health side to the coaching side. I spent a lot of years being diagnosed and spent a lot of years with medication. And when I got to a certain point on my journey, I didn't want any part of that. And so then when I got to that part of, and there were a couple of things that happened, that moving is part of the reason, when I started to question which route I was going to go. And actually, I have found coaching can be incredibly deep, and yet it's very different. for some, let's say, a lot of people I've seen, let's say they've done a lot of counseling and they're just like, okay, seriously, can I just get to the other side? You know, like I'm done with this. Then
Absolutely.
you've got people who are like, I have to know. I want to, I call this sitting in your shit. I have to sit in my shit. I have to rehash, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
And I've said to people before, there were many, many times on my journey, I wouldn't have been ready for the work I do now.
Yeah.
You know, there were things that I needed to, um, move through myself before I could get to the point of changing the relationship with all of the things that I had been through, you know?
Well, and just with that being said, I'll tell you that it's not easy for me because I'm not a diagnosis person, to be
Yeah,
honest. I'm not. And medication, I do know that it has its place,
it
but
can.
I think medication is mostly supposed to be kind of a short-lived, and so I mean, obviously, I can't prescribe medications,
Yeah,
a therapist, but it is difficult for me as a therapist because I don't subscribe to a lot of the systems.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's so true. And I've talked to a lot of clients. They have been so often harmed by the system. They're scared of the system. A lot of times, let's say if someone's going through, let's say they're seeing spirits as an example, or they're hearing spirits or whatever's going on, they're terrified to tell somebody that because they're afraid they're going to get locked up. And
absolutely.
and they don't feel like they have someone they can be honest about. This is not, they're not going through some kind of thing. They have some gifts that have actually opened up, and that can be very confusing and scary for people. So a lot of times I know I've had people come to me, and I've had to talk about things so that it sort of gave them the open door to say, oh, okay, I'm safe to talk about things like that here. You know, even it could be anything. It could be anything where people have been made to feel unsafe. You
Yes.
know, they maybe they were on this path and they decided that doesn't work for me anymore. I'd like to go this way, but they're afraid to tell people, afraid of repercussions, I think.
Yeah. And fortunately, I've had a lot of good therapists that have worked with me,
Yeah.
but there have been other therapists that I worked with that scared the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really pride myself in being a therapist that is healthy and kind and not so rigid. I'm going to work with someone in a different way than other mental health therapists, and that's okay. And just the pack, I mean, I'm staying true to my ethics. The most important thing as a therapist is to do no harm.
100%. And I feel like personally, I feel like that should be the number one thing for every profession, whatever it is, you know. And I love that you said that. I also had some excellent therapists through my life who really did good work with me. The counselors I worked with, they did great work with me. I also have said, you know, the term trauma informed really pisses me off, and I can go on a diatribe about that. But I had a counselor one time who I just adored as a human. Like, she was super sweet. And I literally said, I am so sorry, but you are not ready for me yet. Like,
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that you've got your thing on the wall and you did this education, but no, no. And that's a concern to me. And also, you brought up a good point. I remember when I was doing graduate school, there were people I was in class with, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to unleash these people on the world. And if this was someone's first experience with a counselor, I'm terrified for them,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, in my journey, I have come to realize there's a difference between being trauma informed and being trauma trained.
Or trauma survived, trauma lived, trauma
Absolutely,
overcome.
absolutely, absolutely. Mhm.
Because, and that's the thing, you never know what a trauma trigger is going to be for something. You cannot
Absolutely.
know that.
That's right. That's right. I mean, working in the field, I've heard of therapists that actually wouldn't even let their client cry,
Mm,
like shut down tears, wouldn't even let them share what they were trying to share about their trauma because it's too hard for a therapist to hear. And
no,
that
I went
disheartening.
I used to work for the government and I had an EAP program, which is employee assistance. And there was a counselor on there that was and I'm not throwing shade against anybody, just putting that out there, but was a Christian counselor.
Mhm.
Well, probably that usually gives me an idea that it's probably not a person for me, not because, but if that's what you're leading with, sometimes that's a red flag. So I go to this person and I must have said a word that offended her, and she let me know about it. And the word was probably fuck. I'll just, that's probably it. And I am in the middle of sharing something that is um, hard to get out. And at that time, that was literally the word that needed to bring it home,
Absolutely.
and you shut down and you feel like, okay, so it's not okay for me to speak. It's not okay for me to find the help I need. It's like re-injuring people. And I find that makes me so angry. So I'm thrilled to hear, and again, love to know about people who are in these professions who are actually doing good work and treating people because they've been through it themselves and they know what what's missing out there. They know what's missing out there, and something that will actually um give a person a safe space to be what they needed to be.
I'm finding some emotion come up hearing you say that
Yeah.
because that was my experience.
Yeah.
And I've deconstructed my religious beliefs, you know, and I I am, you'll see the cross up there, you know. I love Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like my faith is very strong, but I understand the difference. I understand the differences. And I understand that religious abuse and spiritual abuse is very real.
Yep. It
Yeah.
sure is.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's why I said what I said, because, my sexual abuse came from a deacon in the Baptist church, you know, hello. And well, that really kind of screws a kid up, and the thing is, that doesn't mean that makes all church bad. Doesn't mean it
Absolutely.
makes all deacons bad. Doesn't mean it makes all Baptists bad. It's not what it means.
Absolutely.
Has nothing to do with Christianity. It has to do with how many times are you harmed within a certain system to where you go, okay, time out.
Yeah.
I got to go. And when I walked away from church years ago, I remember people thought I had an issue with God. I said, oh, my problem is not with God. My problem is with people in organized religion, and I'm just going to need to be out of that. And it's and even the work I do now, there are people who would think I'm of the devil, because I'm like, what the hell? I literally have dedicated my life to helping people, and
Yeah.
that is just nonsense what
Yeah.
you're spouting there. And it's just, and I think that's the thing, you know, I've had clients come to me that they've been harmed in cults, they've been harmed in religions, they've left religions, they've been harmed in churches, they've been harmed in schools, they've been harmed in
Absolutely.
families. You know, it's just like, okay, so how again do we create a safe space for people to actually heal? And a lot of times, I did a video about this a while back called Betrayal on the Path.
Okay.
And you know, it's like getting people to understand how to be their own leader, how to be their own and be able to discern and know in their body if their body is giving them a signal that says no, run,
Right.
no, get away, no, move, you know. And just because someone has a title, no. And it happens in the spiritual community too. People
Oh,
who
sure.
go into these things and supposedly do no harm and are absolutely harming people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that is, again, another reason why it's so important to me that people who are really, really doing good work, and I don't care what they're doing. I
Yeah.
don't care what work they're doing. Are you doing work with the heart to come from a space of love and a place to give someone a safe space to heal whatever it is they need to heal
Absolutely.
without hurting them again?
Mhm. Yeah, that's it. You know, I was just a couple of years out of my master's degree and finally getting out of a unhealthy relationship. You know, I'm working in the field, realizing there was stuff I needed to heal.
Yeah.
And there was very few people that would hold space with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I took some really drastic measures in moving myself into a better healing and recovery space.
So good.
Yeah. And I had to leave some of those spaces because they weren't healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, in the church, they helped me with the car, but they wouldn't sit with me and let me cry and talk about what I needed to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, coming from the Bible Belt, and I'm from a very small community. Like I know those people love me, but they can't show up for me. They couldn't show up for me because they've never really shown up for themselves. I mean, that's how and I don't want to judge. Like I absolutely don't want to be judging anyone. And I want to stay back, even talking about the therapist in the past. Like I don't want to, I'm not here to judge any therapist, you know.
Yeah.
I know everyone's on their own path, but it hurt and
Yeah.
it's taken things. It took me a lot longer to get where I am today than it had to have. But I'm grateful for every piece of wisdom and pain
Yeah.
to be where I am today.
100%. And the thing about it is, you never know, as a coach, as a therapist, as a massage therapist, or whatever role you're in, who's going to walk through your door. And I think it's really important that you are strengthened enough through your own journey to be able to hold that space. And I like to share a story about a previous client who I recently found is now passed, which broke my heart. But
Mm.
when he first came to me, I was pretty new as a coach, and I was doing my best to be in my best spiritual, very feminine, you know, cross legs, super, you know,
Mhm.
love light, you know, sweet,
Mhm. Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
This guy was long beard, tatted up. He walked in, he sat down, he was fuck this, fuck that. He was derogatory about women. He was the whole
Mhm.
thing. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to figure this one out. So I set my little paperwork down. I spread my knees apart. I leaned forward in a very masculine
Mhm.
role. And I
Yeah.
said, let me tell you something about me. And I shared a little bit and I said, I'm not scared of you
Yeah.
and I'm not going anywhere. So
Yeah.
please continue. And I got back. And within about 30 minutes, he was in tears because he kept trying to get people to help him and people weren't helping him. So he started coming out with this strong,
Absolutely.
to keep people away.
All those parts to protect him.
That's right. And when he realized he didn't scare me and I wasn't going to move, and with what I shared with him,
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, okay." And there it came,
Yeah.
and sometimes really that's what we need, because if we've been harmed so many times, we may push people away
Yeah.
because it feels like same story, same, different day.
Absolutely.
And it makes me so sad that people are going through that, and they just search and search and search for someone who can actually help them get to the other side.
They can actually hold space.
Yeah. And really understand what that actually means. Yeah. As a holistic spiritual coach, and I've said this to my clients before when they came in my office, there is tissue in the office. I'm never going to offer it to you,
Yep.
because when those tears start coming, we just need to let them go. And the restroom I had was called the releasing room. And I said, because it might come out in tears, it might come out in poop, it might come out in pee, it might be snot.
Yeah.
We don't know what's coming out. You might need to throw up.
Yep.
That's how because some people don't know, like, well, how do I know? Well, it's the same way when you're releasing weight. It's the same way. Where does it go? Well, it's coming out of here, coming out of somewhere to get out of your body, and I think that's important for people to know.
Absolutely. Purge it however you need to. Get it out.
Yes.
Yeah. I can think about my own therapist and how much Kleenex and how much snot
Yeah.
comes up when I'm working with her.
It's not a pretty experience.
Yeah. It's messy. It is messy.
It is very messy. And the other part is sometimes, and I know I've been in this space too, and I bet you probably have too, where you're terrified to cry. You're terrified to talk because it's like opening Pandora's box. And I used to feel like I literally might die.
Yeah.
If this starts coming out. Like there's no way to stop it. I just don't even know if I can go there. Did you find that?
I have. And interesting enough, one of my therapists actually does a group, kind of like what you were talking about with Virginia Satir.
Uh-huh.
And she helps us she does like sculpts, and it's like our parts. And when I did the last one, like all I could do was just cry. I could hardly even speak because it was just so hard to actually say what I had to say.
Yeah. It's so true. And what I have shared with people before is I know it sucks. Like, I get it. It does suck. But I tell you what sucks worse is another year or 5 or 20 or 50 that you're still carrying that shit around, because it turns into disease. It turns into addiction. It turns into your body becoming so sick that you can't function. And so, one of the things I work with people on is helping them understand when they're having symptoms in their body, what is the root emotion that's going on, whether it's blood pressure or whether it's they broke a bone or whether it's, I can give you we can we can look at, oh, well, let's see what your body's trying to tell us, because that mind body connection, people don't really still
they don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I have been able to understand that. I know the path that I've been on, like becoming a massage therapist at 18 years old,
Yeah.
and I did not have a lick of self-esteem at 18 years old to do massage. But when I got to college and I went to work at the day spa that I went, worked at, finding a mentor and someone to help me. And then I was able to hone my skills as a massage therapist and work in that field for so long. And it was such a beautiful, beautiful journey. But then realizing that so many people had mental health, like, trauma, stuff that they needed to talk about. And
Mhm.
I think that's, and me, myself,
Yeah.
moving into that.
I
Um,
love that you started out. I often wonder, like I was planning to be a fashion buyer is what I thought I was going to be, and became a mom when I was 17. And then ended up in the federal government, which from the beginning, it felt out of alignment, but I didn't have that language then. I didn't know what that meant, and yeah, and I went into modalities like hypnotherapy and yoga nidra, where I can work with people to release what's going on in the body without it being, coming either out of words or from the headspace, from different places. And it's so wonderful for people to know about, oh, there's so many modalities, and not any of them are magic pills.
no,
You may find that some resonate with you, some don't. You
right,
may find you need a combination. You may find, I love this modality, but I don't like this practitioner or whatever.
absolutely.
And, it's, yeah, to get to the other side of CPTSD for me wasn't just a one size fits all sort of thing. Like there's been a lot of things along the way.
Yeah, that's my journey too. I in 2015 I found a book, and it was on complex PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And the book was called It's Not You, It's What Happened to You.
Yeah.
And when I read that, it was just like, oh my God, oh, this is what's going on, you know? And that was in 2015. And here we are almost 10 years later.
For sure. It's like even the ACEs study, it was, which is adverse childhood experiences study for those who may be listening. It was years, but I didn't know anything about that. And I'm a 9 on a 10 scale. Who
Mm,
knew? Who knew? It's like, oh, well, that's information that could have been helpful for me to understand about myself, you know?
absolutely. Absolutely. And that was clear back in the 80s that they started that. And
Yeah.
here it is that really people have been talking about it maybe 5, maybe 10 years. I
And
don't think 10 years.
I had never heard of
Yeah.
that. Never had
Yeah.
heard. I don't even know how. I think I found it on the internet by
Really.
accident,
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows? And I love that you have yellow on today, because that is the solar plexus chakra. That is your power center. So I love that you're
Yeah. Thanks.
just showing up in your power center. And I've got green on today, which is
Yeah.
the heart center.
Okay.
So heart space. Yeah. See you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Yes. I appreciate that. I love that.
there's you can't really see 1 and 2. You can see
Uh-huh.
the yellow one. It's number 3. So
Okay.
anyway, well, yeah. So I cannot believe we're already coming close to the end of our time
Yeah.
together. So I love these conversations.
Me too.
They mean so much to me. So if there was anything, if anything that you wanted people to know, what would you have something you wanted people to know?
Oh, I think what just came up is just the difference between self-worth and self-esteem.
Okay.
Your worth is inherent. You were born worthy, no matter what anybody told you. No matter what anybody said.
Okay, we had a little tech snafu, so go ahead, Lynda, with what you were saying.
Yeah, just your self-worth is inherent. No matter what anyone said to you, what they've done to you are not a victim. Okay? You are worthy of everything you want in this world. Our self-esteem, self-esteem is about performance. Okay? And it's important to have healthy self-esteem. But it doesn't matter if you have a $500,000 home or you're living on the streets. You're worthy. You're valuable. You're important. So don't let anybody ever tell you anything different. You define yourself and your higher power, whatever you call your higher power, is who defines you.
Beautiful. 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in the entrepreneurial world, you often hear them say, charge your worth. I'm like, that is such bullshit. There is not one. Money and your worth are not in the same. No, that's flawed thinking. No. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Holistic Pathway podcast, where we talk about unscripted conversations on mind, body, spirit, entrepreneurship, with a new episode uploaded every Saturday. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.